Plus, this man lost his home and everything he owned. And tonight he'll prove how one of Australia's biggest banks actually forged documents to do him in. Truly astonishing results. How an apparently simple bank loan led to a mammoth legal battle and the loss of a man's home. There are claims of secret deals, doctored documents and broken promises. And behind it all are the very basic issues of trust and betrayal. Karen Cooper reports.
I was stunned. You know, I tore open the envelopes. I didn't know what it was, of course. And I was just literally stunned.
Sent anonymously, this document has just turned up out of the blue in Joe Brooks's mailbox. And as you'll see, it exposes an extraordinary bank scandal.
In the case of ANZ, they've crossed the line from being just a bastard.
This is the original. Have a look. You're not even willing to have a look.
I know I didn't do it.
Well, then why are you not willing to talk to me about it?
Why are you... What right do you have...
Because this man lost his home. He lost everything. Joe Brooks is a boat builder. In 1988, he was approached by this man, wealthy businessman Jim Marshall, to go into partnership. When the business slowed and needed a cash injection, Joe and Jim went co-guarantors and borrowed $150,000 from the ANZ. Joe says Jim Marshall told him the bank needed bricks and mortar security, which he couldn't supply at the time as his assets were in trust.
On that basis, he convinced my wife and I to go co-guarantors for the loan with the bank, provided our home as security.
What did you understand the terms of the loan agreement to be?
The bank manager told my wife and I very, very clearly that if anything went wrong, they would recover the money from the guarantors before they would look at selling the security property.
But things did go wrong, and the ANZ Bank took Joe to court to force him to sell his home to repay the entire debt. The whole fiasco cost him close to $500,000. Jim Marshall, despite being a co-guarantor, denied any immediate responsibility for the debt, and his version was backed up by these photocopied bank diary notes.
And they proceeded to sell my wife and I up, and inexplicably, which we just couldn't understand, they just left the Marshalls out of it.
Jim Marshall and his wife Elizabeth still live in their $1 million Sydney waterside home. In court, Jim denied there was any trust locking up his assets and stood by and watched as Joe Brooks's family was forced onto the streets. But the court case that resulted in the forced sale of Joe's home was all largely based on a fake diary note. Joe wasn't suspicious until he began preparing his appeal, and then had the photocopied diary note inspected by Forensic Document Services. Even a judge agreed it was phony. Justice Cole.
It is apparent even to the naked eye that an alteration has been made.
I saw the prima facie case, a lot of the evidence was presented to me, and I could see the injustice, how this poor man was going to lose his house.
Ivan Petch was the state member at the time and took his concerns to the New South Wales Parliament. But because the bank claimed the original notes had been lost or destroyed, there was no way to prove from what or how the documents had been altered. Until now.
This is the bundle of original diary notes that arrived in the mail, the missing link as we call it.
Incredibly, what has just mysteriously turned up 8 years on are the original bank diary notes, and the proof someone at the bank forged them.
I only ever saw the fake one, of course, so did the judge. The original backs up everything my wife and I told in court.
It's fake, and that man lost his home. Why didn't you go after Mr. Marshall?
It is not fake.
Why didn't you go after Mr.
None
Marshall?
of your business. Turn that off.
Kevin Bugg was the ANZ branch manager who authorised the loan and signed off on all the diary notes. Joe Brooks was told when he first uncovered the phony evidence that Mr. Bugg had died of cancer. But it's clear Mr. Bugg is very much alive and denies any involvement.
I can tell you now that I did not falsify any documents.
Then who did? Someone,
I don't know.
Someone did.
Absolutely. It'd certainly be done by somebody in the bank.
John Salmon is a former bank manager with the National and now a banking disputes advocate. After inspecting both documents, he says Joe's home should never have been the bank's first target.
It's obvious that the whole situation is twisted to support one guarantor at the expense of another.
Well, that is absolute outrageous behaviour. I would expect better from our banking institutions.
In this case, the ANZ denies any fraud or collusion and says even if the document was altered, it wouldn't have affected the outcome. Try telling that to Joe.
I'm not going to let them get away with this. I'm not going to let Marshall get away with this. I'm not going to let the person who falsified the diary note get away with it, and I'm certainly not going to let the ANZ Bank get away with it.
He says this case is disturbing, but even more shocking, he says it's extremely common for banks to doctor evidence.
Once the bank's executives, senior management, finds themselves in litigation, they will instruct their subordinates, bank managers, to go and reconstruct and their records to ensure that the situation protects their own name and protects their position.
They would dummy up any documents to suit themselves.
Absolutely, yes.
Continuing its deception, the ANZ told Joe Brooks when he first uncovered the phony evidence that Mr Bug had died of cancer. But it's clear Mr Bug is very much alive.
The injustice, how this poor man was going to lose his house while a millionaire walked away scot-free.
The treachery. You know, but he's pretending to be your friend and partner, and he walked away without paying a cent. But ANZ protected him right to the very end. In the case of ANZ, they've crossed the line from being just a bastard. They've crossed the line and become a criminal, and that's a whole different ballgame.